here with Joe Mathews. He's Irvine Senior Fellow at the New America Foundation, a journalist and author, and co-author of California Crackup, a book about how we got into this mess as California. So California Crackup, Joe, just how funny is this situation we're in?
Well, the book is pretty funny. The situation is less funny, though it has some moments of absurdity. I always find it's sort of funny to try to describe how the education funding formula, Prop 98, that's hilarious. That leaves audiences in stitches. It does.
Absolutely, yes. Rolling in the aisles.
It does. It does. Right when by the time you get to test 3, it's hard to keep going.
Oh, test 3 is way better. Well, it's the third test, right?
Exactly.
So okay, fair enough. But this is also real for some students. I mean, some students really got arrested, right? There were 5 students who protested in Sacramento yesterday. Yes. There was some burning that happened in Berkeley.
It's true, though. I wonder why. I mean, getting arrested in this day and age under the system that governs California for protesting, outside legislative offices is sort of like getting arrested for protesting your janitor. You're essentially protesting the cleanup crew.
Right.
The folks who have to sort of show up and pick up the entire mess that you. Assuming you're a voter, made. Now, I guess younger folks haven't been voters for very long, but it's really sort of beside the. I mean, protesting at the Capitol is a utter and complete waste of time.
Okay, so tell me, Joe, where should these students be protesting? Joe shared with me a series of proposals as to where the students might better protest. They could block freeways, stand in front of the prison guards union, or even protest Chevron. And then he shared with me his most intriguing proposal.
Let me give you the best one. Let's cut to the chase. The one I would pick if I were a student is I would have my protests outside unsold homes.
Unsold homes?
Unsold homes. I would search the
like
real estate
newly
listings.
Constructed unsold homes?
They could be newly constructed. They could be there for a long time. Something that's been on the market for a long time. I scan the real estate listings and fan out and have a big protest on a couple of unsold homes.
Okay, this seems to be a little bit safer than the blocking traffic.
It probably is.
And probably in the prison guards.
And it has a point that I think. I think it goes to the point. And I'm certainly not. This is not entirely my idea. It's inspired by a lot of conversations and reading I've done, and particularly the work of a demographer at USC named Dow Myers, who makes the point, the very strong point that why should you care about these students? To someone who doesn't have a kid at Cal State or in community college or UC. The bottom line reason you should care is that this state is not producing enough college graduates and highly skilled people that it needs to meet the job demand that's projected to be out there, and just to simply kind of turn over the generations
to buy your house.
Okay. You want these folks educated so they can come and buy your house.
Right.
If you don't do this, if we keep coming back the unsold house, the big empty unsold house, could become the symbol of California for the next 25 years.
Yeah, it has been the symbol of
California.
California.
And I would sort of make that. I mean, it's an oversimplified argument, but it's true at the core. I would sort of say we don't want this. And that it sort of brings it to the very basic level. It's a symbol. I like it in a sort of in a backdoor way. Kind of ties into the symbol. The house, the homeowner, sort of the symbol of the last 30 years of California political history. I mean, this sort of romance we have around that homeowner and protecting that homeowner. Gave us Prop 13. Which is, my co-author, Mr. Paul, points out, sort of gave us a new operating system. Right. And that's a way to sort of jump into the middle of that discussion. Okay. And sort of say, there's a connection between these things. You want these folks educated so they can, buy the house on your street or buy your own house. Okay. When you get old and it's time to sell it. And
you thought of the fifth one.
I forgot the fifth one. My fifth one, and was sort of related to this, is I think there's a great opportunity to organize in a much more positive fashion, probably not get arrested and actually be on your best behavior. I go out into the senior communities. I
go talk to the seniors.
Mark the other night at dinner, but if I were at Berkeley, I wouldn't protest at Berkeley. I'd get on a bus and go off to Rossmore, the huge senior sort of community near Walnut Creek. Okay. Protest outside.
Why would you do that?
Well, because California voters are old.
Okay.
The average age is about 60.
The average age of the California voter is 60
projection is that,
years old.
That's the average age of the person who will cast a vote in this statewide election, general election in November of 2010. So those are the folks making the decisions.
Okay.
They're the folks who've been voting presumably for a long time and are, effectively the authors of the system. And older.
Right.
And so I would try to reach. I'd be very gentle. You're protesting grandma and grandpa, and I try to work and get some of those folks there, involved
So more
in the
maybe
protest.
public education than protest.
Well, I mean, the protest is supposed to be public education.
Okay.
I mean, you're trying to drive action.
Okay.
But those are 5 places. I think you get more bang for your buck certainly than than protesting on a college campus where everyone should agree with you already.
Right.
Or at the state capitol.
What
where
about
it's a sort of waste of time.
the students who hope that California will raise taxes to make education more affordable would do well to listen to my friend Joe's story about the strange politics of taxation in California.
When I was doing my Schwarzenegger book, called The People's Machine, came out in 2006, and I got access to all of the sort of the
Still available online.
Thank you.
People's Machine.
Internals of
Joe Mathews.
Schwarzenegger's political operation from his first term. I mean, they had polling because in some of the memos it was clear that Schwarzenegger, who has many problems, but actually was not a bad student in math, thought that he would like to raise taxes, in his first year in office. He thought he had might have an opening right when he came in to do that, and they polled on it.
Right.
He was interested in a sales tax
Okay.
increase, and they polled on it. And they pulled it every which way, and it was popular. It was popular with the majority of the public.
Okay.
To
do what, though?
To raise the sales tax by a penny or two.
To pay for something specific?
To try to cover the budget deficit.
Right.
Instead of doing what he ultimately did, which was this sort of, I would call extra constitutional borrowing, though they had a constitutional amendment attached to make it, I guess, technically constitutional. You should ask my co-author, the budget expert, more about that. But essentially, the reason they didn't do it is because the same polling showed that even though the tax itself was popular, that he would become very, very unpopular personally as a political figure by being the person advancing the
So
the
if
tax.
politicians do the right thing, or they do a thing that is popular,
Right.
It leads to their getting voted out of
Yeah.
office. Now, politicians aren't stupid, right? They
Right.
have jobs. They, want to continue in those jobs. They don't want to do things.
Yeah,
that are
politicians
gonna-
aren't stupid is a deeper and longer conversation.
Well,
But
I mean,
we'll
they understand
we'll assume
what
that
gets
for
them-
purposes of this
Okay, fair
conversation.
enough.
Yes.
They understand what gets them reelected.
Right.
And they're not, authorized by their families to commit career suicide any more than any of the rest of us are.
It's true. But even that, and there's a guy who, I was disappointed when I read that. I mean, this was a different kind of guy, a guy who was already famous and rich,
Right.
and was telling us he was doing this as sort of his way of giving back to the country.
Right.
There's no elected office, I would argue, in the country to which he is eligible to serve.
Right.
That has more power than the one he had just been elected to.
Right.
I would think that, I would like to think that seeing those polls, that guy would have made the decision to do this thing that actually the public wanted in
Right.
his own polling, and taken the hit, and worked, and hoped that essentially, raising the tax in addition with some other budget policies would have made the situation
But he
better.
didn't
But he
do it.
did not do that.
So if he didn't do it at that point, what are the chances that it's going to happen this year?
Well, I think you could see, a temporary tax. I mean, he was willing to sign on to that. I mean,
Right.
at various times he's been for everything and against everything.
But the cost of that temporary tax was a long-term massive tax cut, right?
Right.
That was the deal.
There was
So
that.
ultimately, we were mortgaging our future.
Yes, we always seem to mortgage our future.
Okay.
I know.
And it's the students that pay the price.
Well, what can I tell you? I mean, it's frustrating and maddening, and I don't know if you've read the Christopher Buckley novel Boomsday.
Yeah.
I have to say, the Gen Xer in me reading that loved it when there's a sort of a rebellion by the Gen Xers and the Gen Yers against the Boomers,
Yeah.
and people start attacking retirement communities and throwing Molotov cocktails at
Right.
people on golf courses. I mean, it all sort
So
of
you're
goes-
frustrated.
I am
You're
frustrated.
frustrated. Are we going to see you blocking traffic on the Bay Bridge sometime in the next week?
You know, I think no, because it's awfully cold and rainy up here. But if the UCLA folks and Harbor College and Cal State Long Beach all got together and wanted to block the 405,
Joe Mathews will be
you know,
there.
I might be there.
All right.
Though I'm not
Excellent.
sure, you know, if it was rush hour, if anyone would notice the difference.
Yeah, no commitments. All right. Thanks, Joe, so much for joining us, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.